This food smells like poison.
Make sure you finish all this. Food is the only thing you know how to do.
Hi, lovelies. Have you ever been in a situation whereby you were hated for the wrong reasons? As the saying goes, whatever one sow, that's what one will reap. Let's dive into the story and see how it unfolds.
Imagine looking into the eyes of a woman you once called not your type, and watching her become the only person who fed you, carried your child, and never once asked you for anything in return. Imagine your own mother slapping that woman across the face on her wedding day. Now imagine, after everything she gave you, you still introduced her to your friends as nothing more than the help. This is the story of a man named Andrew, handsome, wealthy, ambitious, a man who had everything money could buy, except the one thing he refused to see standing right in front of him the whole time. This is also the story of Rose, a woman who sold food on a dusty roadside, who gave Andrew her body, her child, her dignity, and her silence, and got nothing back but cruelty wrapped in convenience. And this is the story of how a house built on ambition, vanity, and contempt for a good woman came crashing down in front of the entire nation. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to learn exactly what happens when a man chases power and forgets the woman who was already holding up his life.
Andrew was the kind of man rooms noticed before he even spoke. Mid-20s, tall, the kind of handsome that made women forget what they were seeing, wealthy. Not comfortable, wealthy. The kind of money that buys a mansion, a fleet of cars, and a seat at every important table in the city. And on weekday evenings, after meetings and money and motion, Andrew would sit with his friends. Two men who had already settled down, already married, already building the quiet kind of life Andrew claimed he didn't want yet. You people should chill, Andrew would tell them, laughing. Una don't rush into prison. Me, I'm still enjoying my life. His friends would shake their heads and talk about their wives, dinner waiting at home, a hand to hold, a partner in the quiet hours. And Andrew? Andrew would smile that easy, untouchable smile and say, I'll marry soon, when the right one comes. He believed it too, because in Andrew's world, there was always another woman walking through his front door, another bottle of wine on his kitchen counter, another weekend that needed catering. And speaking of catering, there was one woman he called more than anyone else. Her name was Rose. She ran a small buka, a roadside food shop, down the street from Andrew's estate. Nothing fancy, just wooden benches, a few pots, and food that tasted like somebody actually cared while making it. Andrew started going there after work, at first just to eat. But Rose's jollof rice had a way of making a man come back. And soon, just to eat became, can you bring it to my house this weekend, Rose? She always said yes. She'd arrive at his mansion on Saturday afternoons, cook in his massive marble kitchen, sometimes serve his girlfriends, yes, plural, while they laughed and drank in his living room, completely unaware that the woman serving their plates was the most decent person in that entire building. Rose never complained. She took her money, she said thank you, sir, and she went back to her buka. Nobody in that house, not Andrew, not his rotating castle women, ever once looked at Rose and thought, this woman deserves better than this.
Now, here's where the story takes its first real turn. Andrew's mother, Madame Agnes, lived in the United States. A sharp, ambitious woman who had spent years grooming her son for something bigger than parties and pretty women. Because Andrew wasn't just rich, Andrew had political dreams. He was planning to run for a seat in the House of Assembly. And in Nigerian politics, dear viewer, a single man running for office is a liability. Voters want to see stability, family values, a wife on his arm in campaign posters. Madame Agnes knew this better than anyone. So one evening, her phone call came through, sharp and excited. Andrew, I have a pleasant surprise for you. Chief Okeke's daughter, Sophie, the billionaire's daughter, is coming to Nigeria this weekend. I've told her everything about you. Shoot your shots. No mistakes. We need her father's influence for this election. And Andrew, obedient son, ambitious politician, simply said, "Yes, ma, I will do as you say." Just like that. A whole relationship engineered over the phone before either party had even met. Sophie wasn't a woman to Andrew yet. She was his strategy. When Sophie arrived in Nigeria, Andrew picked her up himself at the airport. She suggested a hotel. Andrew insisted on his mansion. "I have enough rooms," he said. And Sophie, confident, polished, the daughter of a billionaire who had never once had to insist on anything in her life, agreed. That evening, hungry and wanting to impress her, Andrew did what he always did. He called Rose. "Rose, I need you to cook something special tonight. I have a guest." And Rose, as always, came immediately, cooked a meal so good that Sophie complimented it twice, collected her payment quietly, and disappeared back into the dark, completely invisible to the woman she had just fed.
Sophie flew back to the United States a few weeks later, and Andrew, for all his confidence with women, had said absolutely nothing about his feelings. His mother was furious. "Andrew, how did it go?" "Mom, I couldn't. Honestly, Sophie is not my type." If you have ever heard a Nigerian mother scream through a phone, you already know what happened next. "You stupid boy, which one is not your type? You better do the needful, or I will forget that I gave birth to you." Andrew, to his credit, didn't argue. "Mom, I will call her tonight. I'll tell her my feelings." "You better, before you ruin this chance." That night, Andrew called Sophie, summoned every ounce of courage a man summons when his mother is the one actually pushing the relationship forward, and he confessed his feelings. And Sophie, who, let's be honest, had been quietly hoping he would say something the entire trip, answered without hesitation, "I like you too. I was just waiting for you to bring it up." And just like that, a long-distance relationship was born. Late-night calls, promises, gifts shipped across continents. Andrew started calling her my future wife before she had even set foot back in the country. Madame Agnes, watching from afar, finally exhaled. Her plan was working. A few weeks later, Andrew came home from work exhausted and hungry. He stopped at Rose's buka, as he always did. She served him, he ate, he paid. But before he left that Friday evening, he handed her some extra money and asked her to come to the house the next day, Saturday, to help him cook. Rose, as always, said yes. The next afternoon she arrived, cooked as usual. But something happened that evening that neither of them planned, expected, or wanted to admit out loud. They ate together, they laughed, and somewhere between the laughter and the wine, two lonely people made a mistake that would change 4 lives forever. Afterward, Andrew dropped to his knees. "I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me." And Rose, gentle, unassuming Rose, simply said, "It's fine, we are both adults." She didn't know in that moment that Andrew's apology wasn't really about respect. It was about embarrassment. Because Rose, kind, hardworking, beautiful in her own quiet way, was still, in Andrew's mind, not his type. He had slept with a woman he didn't think he deserved to want. And that contradiction would haunt every decision he made for the rest of this story. A month later, Rose was at her buka serving a customer when a wave of nausea hit her so hard she nearly collapsed over the pot. "Please don't vomit inside my food," the customer said, half joking, half alarmed. Rose ran to the back of the shop. That evening, a doctor confirmed what her body already knew. She was pregnant. She sat outside the clinic and cried, not tears of joy, but the specific tears of a woman who knows her life is about to become something she never asked for. "Oh God, I didn't want any of this." She went straight to Andrew's house. He was shocked to see her at his door so late. "Rose, what's wrong?" "I'm pregnant. For you." Andrew denied it instantly. Of course he did. But a few hours and a lot of internal political calculation later, he changed his tone. "I'll take responsibility, but you cannot tell anyone." Rose, terrified now, she had heard him call her not his type with her own 2 ears, wanted to run. She was scared of what a man like Andrew might do to protect his image. But Andrew told her to stay. No more buka, no public appearances, nothing that could embarrass him before the election. Then he called his mother. And Madame Agnes did something nobody expected. You will marry her. Traditional marriage, just to keep her in the house and keep her quiet. I'm coming to Nigeria this weekend. Let me see this girl. When Madame Agnes landed and walked into that house, she looked at Rose the way you'd look at something stuck to the bottom of your shoe. So this is the gutter girl trying to use pregnancy to trap my son and destroy his political career. Rose knelt respectfully. Welcome, Mama. Agnes didn't even acknowledge the greeting. Who is your mother? Destiny destroyer. Anyway, I've told my son to marry you. Gold diggers like you. This is exactly what you people want. Rose said nothing. What could she say? Then Andrew, the man who had gotten her pregnant, the man whose ring she would soon wear, looked at her standing there, humiliated in front of his mother, and said, "Why are you still standing there? Go and prepare food for my mother." Rose rushed inside, cooked, brought the meal out with trembling hands, hoping that good food might soften something in that woman's heart. Agnes looked at the plate, looked at Rose. "I've lost my appetite. This food smells like poison." She turned to Andrew, "Take me to a proper restaurant." And Andrew, in front of his pregnant fiancée, in front of the woman who had just cooked with love and fear in equal measure, grabbed the food and forced it toward Rose's mouth. "Make sure you finish all this. Food is the only thing you know how to do." If you are watching this and you've ever been made to feel small for trying your best, I need you to know something. That cruelty was never about you. It was about them.
Months later, Rosa's bride price was paid in a quiet, simple ceremony. Andrew and his mother smiled for the cameras, smiled for the guests, smiled like a family that had nothing to hide. But the moment they got home, Madame Agnes grabbed Rose by the arm. "Where do you think you are going?" "Mama, I'm tired. I want to rest." "Rest for what? Are you the only pregnant woman on earth?" And then, on her wedding day, with the henna barely dry on her hands, Madame Agnes slapped Rose across the face. Rose turned to her new husband in shock. "Your mom slapped me." And Andrew, the man who had married her, the man whose child she carried, looked at his wife and said the words that would define their entire marriage. "She's my mom. Whatever she does is right." Rose stood there, speechless. In that single sentence, Andrew told her exactly where she stood in this family. Last. Always last.
While all this was happening, Sophie, back in the United States, completely unaware that Rose existed, was still calling Andrew every week, exchanging love messages, dreaming about a wedding of her own. Madame Agnes encouraged it. Whether people like it or not, gutter people don't determine your shine. Talk to Sophie, my correct daughter-in-law. So even with a heavily pregnant wife under his roof, Andrew kept whispering sweet nothings to another woman on the phone, while his mother cheered him on. And Rose? Rose kept cooking. Andrew would call his friends over for lunch and tell Rose, "I need pounded yam and egusi, fresh. My friends are coming in 1 hour." She would rush to the kitchen, heavily pregnant, exhausted, and pound that yam by hand because Andrew didn't believe in keeping a blender in a kitchen his wife was supposed to be grateful to walk in. One of Andrew's friends, watching her serve them, finally said something. "Bro, she pounded this yam in her condition. You shouldn't let her do that."
And Andrew, without even looking up from his plate, said, "Who cares? All I need her for in this house is to cook." Rose heard every word from the kitchen doorway. Tears fell silently down her face. Not because Madame Agnes hated her. She had expected that. But because now she understood that Andrew hated her too. The only thing keeping her standing was the small life growing inside her. She placed both hands on her belly and whispered, "I am here because of you. I love you, and I know somehow you love me too, even if the whole world has turned its back on me." As election season approached, Madame Agnes made her final move. "Son, it's time. Bring Sophie back to Nigeria. Marry her. We need her father's influence to win this election." Andrew called Sophie immediately. She agreed, believing with her whole heart that this trip was about love. Before Sophie arrived, Madame Agnes gave Rose a chilling instruction. "You will pretend to be the maid. If you say one word otherwise, you are finished in this house." And Rose, for the sake of the child she now loved more than her own comfort, agreed. When Sophie landed, she was treated like royalty. Madame Agnes ordered Rose around constantly. "Get her juice, prepare the chicken, move faster." A heavily pregnant woman
disguised as hired help in her own husband's house. But here's where the story takes a turn nobody in that house saw coming. One afternoon, Sophie said she was hungry. Madame Agnes called for Rose as usual.
And Sophie, billionaire's daughter, accustomed to being obeyed, looked at Agnes and said something nobody expected. "No, ma, you will cook for me yourself. Can't you see she's heavily pregnant? And I just fixed my nails. I can't cook as well. So I command you to go inside the kitchen and make me food. I am hungry." Madame Agnes, the same woman who had slapped Rose on her wedding day, had no choice but to obey Sophie. Because crossing Sophie meant crossing the very influence this whole charade depended on. And from that day forward, something delicious began to happen. Sophie started giving Agnes chores. Laundry, dishes, hand washing. No washing machine, Mama. You'll do it yourself. The woman who built an empire of cruelty in that house had become overnight its newest unpaid servant. When Agnes tried to complain to Andrew, he simply said, "You wanted her as your daughter-in-law. Deal with it." What none of them knew, what none of them could have guessed, was that Sophie had overheard Andrew on the phone with his friends. "My mom made me bring Sophie because of the election." Sophie heard every single word. And from that moment, Sophie wasn't playing a fiancé anymore. She was playing a long game. Sophie married Andrew exactly as planned, smiled at the cameras, played the dutiful fiancé turned wife. But quietly, she had already called her father. "Daddy, I want to deal with these people a little. Let me play along." Her father agreed. So when election day finally arrived, the day Andrew had built his entire life around, Chief Okeke stood at the podium, behind Andrew's rival, in full view of cameras, party members, and the entire constituency. Andrew lost the election that night, came home in tears. His mother cried beside him, the two of them clutching the wreckage of a plan they had built on a foundation of cruelty. And in the chaos of that single devastating night, Rose disappeared. Sophie, quietly, brilliantly, without a single person noticing, had already arranged Rose's travel papers. While everyone in that house was busy plotting, manipulating, and humiliating, Sophie had been planning a rescue. Rose flew to the United States with Sophie's help. She gave birth there, got a job, started an entire life, finally, on her own terms. Back in Nigeria, Madame Agnes and Andrew had thrown every naira they had into that election, certain that victory was coming. They lost everything. The mansion went, the cars went, the fleet of girlfriends, the easy laughter, the untouchable smile, all of it disappeared the moment the money did. Madame Agnes selling food on the street, the very same hustle she once mocked Rose for. And Andrew? Andrew, the handsome, wealthy man who once told his friends, "I'll marry when I want to," was now washing plates beside his mother at a roadside stand. His old friends, the ones who used to admire his mansion, eat his pounded yam, laugh at his jokes, walked by one afternoon and saw him there. And instead of helping, instead of remembering the man who once fed them in his marble kitchen, they laughed, they mocked him. And Andrew and his mother sat there in the dust, sharing tears over a life they had built on the back of a woman they called the help. So, here is what I want to leave you with today. Rose never asked Andrew to love her. She never asked for the mansion, the title, the political dream. All she ever did, every single day, was show up, cook with her whole heart, carry a child that nobody else in that house wanted to claim, and love quietly, even when love was never returned. And in the end, the woman they called the maid, the gutter girl, the help, was the only one who walked away with her dignity, her child, and her peace intact. So, if you are the rose in someone's life, if you are the one feeding people who call you beneath them, the one carrying weight nobody thanks you for, I need you to hear this. Your worth was never decided by the people who couldn't see it. Your kindness is not weakness. It is the very thing that will outlive their cruelty. And one day, sometime sooner than you think, the very people who looked down on you will be the ones standing outside your gate.
If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because we have more stories like this coming your way. Until next time, protect your peace, know your worth, and never let anyone convince you that love and labor make you the help. Take care of yourselves.
We also what happened in the story. Was it right for Mother Agnes to have treated Rose like that? And what later happened to Mother Agnes at the end of the day? Was it justice served? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. So see you inside the comment section. Our next story is on the way. Stay tuned.